A very good morning, students. Today we are going to start with the next chapter of your second unit, which also relates to the collection of data. This chapter includes the census and sample methods of data collection. In this chapter, we will study about making the decision among the census or sample method of the primary data collection according to the objective of our statistical study. Now, firstly, you must be clear about the terms population and sample before starting with the chapter. Now, population means aggregate of all the items about which we want to obtain information or to be studied for an investigation, and it is also called universe. Now, how population can be defined? It refers to the aggregate or the summation of each and every item about which we want to obtain information or the items which are to be studied for an investigation, and it is also known as universe. Over here the population doesn't refers to the population of a certain country like it is 1.3 billions. No, the population over here refers to, for example, if I want to collect information about the 100 items or the 100 individuals who are living in my locality, so that will be population. That is the items through which I will collect my information. But on the other hand, if I will take only 10 items from these 100 items and will collect information on the basis of only 10 items, that will be known as the sample, which means if I am taking each and every individual from the whole population and completing my study, that is the census study, which includes every item of the population. On the other hand, if we talk about the sample, that refers to the few number of items which are taken from the population through which the statistical study is to be conducted. Therefore, a sample refers to a set of individuals, objects or items collected or selected from a statistical population which represents characteristics of entire universe or population. Obviously, if I am taking out the sample from the population itself, these sample items will indicate or show the characteristics of the population itself. Therefore, we can also base our conclusions on these samples which have been taken out from the population. So this was all about the population and the sample. Now next we will study about the methods of statistical inquiry. Basically there are two methods. The first one is the census method and another one is the sample method. Firstly we will study about the census method. Now in this method, the data is collected from every item of the universe or population relating to the statistical study. That means when we are following the census method, we will collect the information or the data from each and every item of the universe or the population, that is, you can say, the area of our investigation relating to our statistical study. And the foremost example or the main example of this method is the census of India. Like in the previous chapter, we have studied about the census of India, but in that we studied about that it is the main secondary source of data for us. But how do the census of India collect information by itself? They definitely contact with each and every individual of the whole population and make out the results from that. Now let's take a very common example. For example, if I want to collect information related to the usage of a certain product, what I will do, I will firstly define a population, that is, I will select an area from which I need to collect the information, and the items or the individuals living in that area will be taken as the universe or population by me. So after that, if I am following the census method, what I will do, I will contact each and every individual living in that area and will collect the required information from those items. So that will also come under the census method. Basically, when we collect the information or data from each and every item of the population or universe, that is known as the census method. And when the census method is suitable, it is suitable when there is small size of population. Obviously, when the population size is very large, it's very difficult to approach each and every individual. Therefore, when the small size of population is there, only then we can follow the census method. Now you must be thinking that in case of census of India, each and every individual is covered, and in that case the size of population is large. Yes, it is, because the census of India is conducted after every 10 years. So they have to contact each and every individual, even if there is involvement of huge cost, time and efforts, but it needs to be conducted to satisfy the various requirements related to the study of the various parameters. Now the next suitability is that diverse items in the universe. In case the items in the universe are diverse or different in characteristics, then we have to study each and every item so that we can make out the results from these different items in the universe also. The third suitability is that high degree of accuracy and reliability. That is, in case we need the data of high accuracy and reliability, then we have to follow the census method. So this was all about the census method of the data collection. The next one is the sample method. As the name only suggests that in this method we will take out a sample from the population and will base our study according to the sample of items selected from the population. So it can be defined as, it is the method in which data is collected about the sample, which is a group of items taken from the population for examination, and conclusions are drawn on their basis. Like in the starting of the topic, I have given you an example of 100 items of the population, out of which 10 items were taken as the sample. Now, if I am drawing the conclusions or examining only these 10 items of the universe, then that method will be known as the sample method. For example, I need to collect information about the students of a certain school. So, if I will contact with each and every student of the school, that will be the census method. But if I am taking one student from each class of the school and drawing the conclusions on the basis of those each student which has been taken as the sample by me, that method will be known as the sample method. So this kind of method is suitable when the size of population is very large. Like for example, in a school there are 3000 students. That is, the size of population is very large over there. So to make my study convenient, what I will do, I will take out only 300 samples from those 3000 students by taking 1 or 2 students from each class according to my statistical study. So in case of a large size of population, I will follow the sample method. The second one is that when high degree of accuracy is not required. Basically in census method, the degree of accuracy is very much high. But if we are drawing our conclusions on the basis of the sample method, the accuracy of data is somewhat affected because our conclusions are drawn only on the basis of few items. So therefore the degree of accuracy is less as compared to that of the census method. And third one is that when different units of the universe are broadly similar to each other. That is, when the items in the universe are having different characteristics, then we have to use the census method. But in case the units of the universe are similar to each other on the basis of the characteristics, then we can use the sample method because the results will not make out any difference as the characteristics of the units of the universe are similar. To make this point clear, I will take an example for you. Now let's say that I need to collect the information about the workers of a certain company. Now the workers who are working in a factory of a company, they may be less educated. That is one of the characteristics of them, that is less educated individuals. So if 100 workers are working in a certain factory and I need to take out the sample from those 100 items. So if I will take 10 items or 10 workers for my study, that will not make any difference in my conclusion because all people are having the same characteristics. But in case I need to collect information about the workers as well as the employers, so in that case the employers are educated, so which means they are having the diverse characteristic. In that case I need to follow the census method because sample may not give me the required conclusions. So this was all about the sample method and the census method. Now these are some of the essentials of a sample or the qualities of a good sample. To make out the right conclusions or the best conclusions out of the sample, we need to fulfill these qualities of the samples which have been drawn from the population. Now the first quality of a good sample is that representative. It means that a sample must represent all the characteristics of the universe. If the sample is not representative, we cannot draw out the correct conclusions from those samples. Therefore, a sample must be representative, which will represent all the characteristics of the universe. Next essential of a sample is that independent, which means that the units of the samples which have been taken out from the population for our study must be independent of each other, which means that if we are including one item in the sample, that does not mean that another item of the universe should also be chosen. So the units of a sample must be independent to each other. The next one is homogeneity. Now homogeneity means similar or same. So therefore, another quality of a good sample is that if more than one sample are selected from a universe, these samples should be homogeneous to each other. That is, they must not be of different characteristic. They must be of same qualities or characteristics so that we can draw out the best results out of them. The next and the last one quality of a good sample is adequacy, which means that the number of items which we are choosing from the whole population for our statistical study must be adequate enough so that we can make out the best conclusions out of them. For example, if the number of population or the number of items in population is 1000 and I am taking only 5 samples out of those 1000 items of the population, so in that case the sample is not adequate enough to draw out the conclusions. Therefore, I must make out the adequate sample. That is, if 1000 items are there in the population, I would have taken out the 100 items as sample, which will be adequate sample for my population. So this was all about our today's video, in which we read about the population, sample, census method as well as the sample method. Now there are some merits and demerits of using these methods, which we will study at the end of this chapter, in which we will make the comparison about the census method of inquiry and the sample method. I hope that this concept is also clear to all of you. Thank you so much.